So the goal of this video is to finally, we've done a quick generic head on our other character. So what we're going to do on this one is we're going to go ahead and look at the how to kind of just sculpt another. This is going to be our second head, very quick generic head like this on our just sort of on the actual mesh itself. So I'm going to go ahead and open up where we left off with the full body. Alright, here we are. So let's go ahead and hide everything. So I'm just going to grab my box hide from here and hide everything up to the shoulders there. And let's hit C to make sure that's all that good stuff is on. Now the trick, if you hit period on your numpad, it'll center everything for you. Okay. And what I want to do is just lay out some lines here. So generally, if I go to 1, I'm going to hit 1. It gives me sort of this flat on view. What I'm going to do with my just sort of my draw brush is I start to lay out the center line here. So I'm holding control, just kind of carving in a little bit here. Let's zoom in a little bit more. I'm also going to hit Shift D to make sure Dine Topo is on, which is here. Or I'm sorry, Control D rather. So you can see it flips on and off here. And as I'm doing this, I'm just carving into the center of the face. Let's go a little bit wider. And all this stuff can get smoothed out later. I'm going to Control D here. Oops. And about the halfway point here, I'm going to draw another line. And roughly where I want the jaw to be is about halfway between this and this. And then the halfway point between the what's supposed to be the center. Some people will carve the entire eye. We're going to move things around. We're lucky we're in clay. The halfway point here is roughly where the nose is. And the width of that nose is entirely where the structure of that big, those crevices we're going to put in from the eyes is going to start. So if say I want my nose to be this wide. Now, like I was saying before, don't think about it. Don't get crazy with these things, because if it doesn't look right, we can always line it up with a reference. This is more for practice. And also with all this good stuff, we can also, like I was saying, this is all for practice. We can move these things around with our grab brush. We're playing with clay, so we're completely safe in making mistakes, and we want to make mistakes. So I'm going to go ahead and hit C to bring up my clay strips. Yours might grab this clay brush. If you watch the previous videos, you'll see how I set up the hotkeys for that. I'm going to hit F to expand this, and I'm just going to carve in by holding Control the eye sockets like this. Notice when I carve, I do a V there, like this triangle shape, and then another triangle shape coming down here. And then I just kind of build that all in like this, and I'm going to smooth that out. Alright. Another area where I start to carve things in is just at the bottom here, at the base of the mouth. I'm going to smooth that out. And then what I do is I grab this chunk with my grab brush, just hitting G to grab my grab brush, and just pulling that nose out a bunch. I'm pushing this in like that, and I'm just starting to shape the face. Now I'm kind of just showing you the all-around quick technique. If you have a specific character in mind, you could line that reference up like I showed you in the previous video. I'm just going through sort of the process of how to build this generic head that we can use later to build our Hercules model. Alright, so there's that. I'm going to further push in that area that I scraped. And what you'll start to notice as I'm pushing this all in down this line here is it accentuates the chin a little bit, which is good. I'm going to bring this nose down a little bit. And I'm going to push in. See how my jaw is super high up here? The widest point of the jaw is where the mouth lines up with it. So you want to think about your mouth being the wide point of your jaw. See that? Let me hit 1 so you could kind of see that a little bit better. I'll move these sides in a little bit more. And I generally like to, even superhero or not, I generally make the width of my chin the same width as my mouth. And if I want to show the width, the chin to be more narrow on my character, I'll just smooth it out and I won't leave it as flat. So the generic archetype of a hero is they have a flat chin, which you'll notice that when we do the Hercules model. Now the next thing I'm going to do is grab a scrape brush, and I'm just going to go in here and scrape out. Might have to add a bunch more geo under our Dying Topo here. So let's do it up here. Detail percentage here. I'm going to add a little bit more here. Let's go a little bit higher. So now you'll notice I'm going to start shifting up here a little bit more. And I don't want to do brush detail actually. I want to do constant detail. And 40 is pretty good for that. Well, let's go much higher than that. Let's crank it up. Let's test it on this area. I'm just kind of laying out that foundation. Let me expand my scrape brush a little bit in here. Hit smooth. Smooth out that area too. Alright, let's do our grab brush. Let's pull that nose in a bit. Pull it up. I'm going to make the cheeks a little more sunken. And maybe a little less than that. Let's go ahead and add our ears. So I'm going to go to object mode. And I'm going to hit Shift A, and I'm just going to grab a cylinder. And let's go ahead and just scale that on the Z axis. Oops. S. So what I did is S to grab my scale brush. Let's make sure that's selected S, and then Z. I'm going to rotate that. Just going to hit G. I'm going to position that in place. Let's hit 3. Let's rotate that a little bit more. Let's scale that down. Now I'm going to hit 1 here to kind of show you the placement of this. So let's grab it, move it into place. I want the top of my ear to be halfway. So let's mark where the eyebrows are. So the eyebrows are a quarter up the head. The halfway point here is where we have a divot in our skull. So let's go back to this guy. I'm going to Alt and click on my guy here. And the reason why I'm able to do that is because I have lock object properties off. Forgive me if the lessons are a little redundant in that, where I'm always kind of jumping back. But when I go inside of here, here's my draw. I'm going to scale this down and just mark that halfway point with my draw brush like this. There we go, that's better. So holding Control to cut that in. Might have to go a little higher. There we go. The reason I like to use it such low poly is because for these lines that I'm going to smooth out later, it adds to my processing time, and it'll slow my machine down if I use high level draws. So that means the halfway point between here and here is where my eyebrows should be, and that sits just above where that eye socket is. So that's where I want the top of my ears to be, is there. Alright, so I'm going to Alt click on this, scale this down a bit more, and I want it to go from the nose to the top. And I like I do with everything, I exaggerate a little bit. I'm going to rotate this back, and I'm going to rotate it forward a little bit so I'm able to, from the front view, see just the top of the ear a little bit like that. Alright, I'm going to push it inside just a little bit of the head, and I want to make sure that might be too forward. No, wrong guy. There it is. Okay. Might be too forward. So something like this. And then I want to just move it back just a little bit so it lines up with the center of the head. We're going to shape all of this, don't worry. And we're going to pull this back so it stays round, just like we did in the other video. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is Alt click on my guy here, and I want to make sure I'm in object mode here. And I'm going to Alt click this ear, and I'm going to go down to my modifiers, grab my mirror here, and I'm going to select this body, and then I'm going to just apply it. So we have this stuff going on here. Next, I'm going to select the male anatomy model and my cylinder, Sorry, let's go with my cylinder and then my male anatomy model. There we go. And inside of the view here, there we go, Control J. The reason why like if you click Control J in here and you're like, why isn't it working? It's because you have to be in the view for that Control J to work. All right, let's go back to our sculpt mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Shift and R, and I'm just going to scale it out a decent amount like this, and then I'm going to hit Control R to remesh the whole thing together. And yeah, you're going to lose some of the detail, and I'm okay with that for now. Like I was saying, we're just building a generic mesh to build the body on. So if you've all these really awesome lines and stuff, that really should come later. And if you want to retain it, you can just kind of hit Shift R and then make this a lot smaller, and then hit Control R if you want to retain a lot of that work like that. But for now, like I said, I'm more interested in just getting a proportional model to practice with and have fun. All right, so let's go ahead and grab our box hide, and I'm going to hit 1 at this time for that, and I'm just going to hide everything up from the collarbone down. And let's get into here and do some sculpting. I'm going to just shape the ear, and here's my clay brush, and just lay down some lines. So coming from this cheekbone down, you want to draw a line that angles out like this. Let's make sure if we hit Control D here to add Dine Topo. There we go. That's going to give us a lot better. Geo. Here we go, to lay down here. And you want to, just like we did in the other video, you want to accentuate that line that runs from the cheekbone to the center of the ear. Same thing around this jawline. A little bit of this muzzle area, like this. I'm going to add a line here, so I can remember my markers. And the other marker I like to do is something like this, where it comes around, loops into the cheek, and then around. This isolates that front face for us, so we have it when we begin sculpting. The ear, let's go ahead and shape this. I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to add a bunch of geometry on the back of the ear, showing where the support of the ear canal and all that stuff comes in. I'm going to add some geo running around the rim of the ear here on the side. Let's hit Shift to add that, like that. On the base of the ear, like this. Now I'm going to grab my grab brush. I'm just going to move this back, pull this up. And I want to keep that shape from the front. From the side, I don't want the ears to stick out that much. I'm going to pull these in, but I want to try to maintain this shape here, that rounded shape. So all right, I think that is a good base. Let's pull this out a little bit more. And pull these guys down. And what you're seeing here is really this inside. Just kind of grab all that junk, pull it down a little bit, pull this up. Yeah, there we go. So we've got a pretty good base going on. The ears need a little more love, and what I'll do is I'll actually in the next video start with just the ears and then build out from there.